do this every day. I do this daily, every day. I do this.
Hello everybody, I've got here Trent from MyGeekShow for our new Do-It-Yourself Drones Vodcast. Hi Trent, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
All the way here from Arkansas?
Must be very cold over there at the moment.
Yeah, it's cold enough that's, I want to say, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's like negative 10-ish centigrade and or something like that, and went flying this morning, about froze my fingers off, but the show must go on.
You have to do it.
Yeah, I can't hold back.
Trent, tell us a bit about yourself.
Cool, yeah. I was actually born and raised in Alaska, believe it or not, so this is warm weather from where I'm from. Born and raised in Alaska. I lived there for all the way up until I was 20 or something like that. I'm older than 20, believe it or not, contrary to my physical appearance. And I went to school at a university called BYU, Idaho, and I studied business. And then I moved here to Arkansas to work for a company here. And I've been here for a few years, and married, have kids, and a very demanding hobby called MyGeekShow. So, yeah, so that's basically me in a nutshell. An expensive, demanding hobby. That's right.
Now, Trent, tell me, how did the MyGeekShow begin? How did you just one day decide, let's make MyGeekShow? What was the initial thoughts to it? What was the end thoughts to it? What was the beginning? Because I remember I just started watching you, and you had this what was it called? A Skywalker or something like that.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Nova. It was called a Nova. It was kind of like your pusher prop. Yeah, exactly.
And you had these two cameras on it and flying in the snow, and I was like, wow, this is the next best thing to the invention of the wheel, cameras on a plane. Can you believe it?
That's right.
Tell us, what?
Yeah, so really quick history. I actually had, I think my brother or someone sent me a YouTube video of FPV, and this was like probably 6-7 years ago. It was a long time ago. And I thought that was just the awesomest thing I've ever seen in my life. And again, this is brand new FPV, so who knows, how old or ancient it was. But that really got me interested in RC airplanes. And a friend of mine bought one, and he crashed it, and he bought just an RC airplane. It was actually a little J3 Piper Cub, just a foamy, and gave it to me and said, "Here, I broke this. If you want it, you can have it." So I repaired it. And tell you what, in the first few seconds of flying that thing, I knew I had found at least what was going to be my hobby for a while. It was so exciting, and just every second I was about to crash. It was a huge rush. Anyway, so that was really fun, and I eventually got an Easy Star, and was just kind of dinking around and having fun. Just brushed, nickel metal hydride Easy Star version 1. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Very, very old, but it flew great, flew awesome, but I was always wanting to make my own and kind of experiment and kind of do like a Mythbusters kind of thing with RC airplanes. But I didn't know anyone in the area where I lived that knew RC airplanes. I was like basically the only one, and so I thought, I should shoot a video of me flying in the snow, post it on YouTube, and see what people think about that. I don't know. So I called it MyGeekShow because at work, when people would see me flying my RC airplane, or they'd see it in the back of my car, they're like, what is this, some kind of geek show? And so I was like, it is. It is like my own geek show. So they always gave me a hard time. They still give me a hard time about it, but that's okay. And so I flew that around, and it was so much fun, and had people viewing it, and just having people comment on it was like, this is kind of fun to kind of get some good feedback on it. So I think one of the first comments someone made was, yeah, if you're flying in the cold, put your batteries in a little hot water bottle pack thing, and then it'll keep your batteries warmer. And so I tried it, and it flew much better. And I thought, man, this is a cool idea. I should just keep doing this.
That's geeky.
That's right. That's right. It's perfect. I got some tips from someone else, and really, that's the whole MyGeekShow, ethos. The whole kind of mantra is that I'm out here messing around with RC airplanes, and then people that watch the show give recommendations and help me because I was very new to it, and over the last few years I've gotten a little more experience, but it's the viewers of My Geek Show that have really made this whole thing possible. And other people as well. So DIY Drones has been a huge supporter, and other forums as well have been really, really supportive. And so learning from other people and just growing. So that's kind of how My Geek Show started, was really kind of me wanting to mess around but wanting to learn from other people. And so those comments was that. And I also love, you know, filming and editing video. I don't get as much time on it as I'd like, but so I like doing that. And then I want to say about probably, I should know these dates, but some like August or something of 2011, I just felt like I didn't really have a purpose. Like I didn't know why I was doing this. I was just having fun, but I wanted some kind of objective, and so that's where the USA trip came in. And so that since then, that's what I've been working towards.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's flipping amazing. I just dig it. I really, really dig it. I mean, and I watched a lot of your episodes where you just build your own plane. I mean, you just start and say, let's design something and then build it and then see if we can fly it. I mean,
right.
That's right from the beginning. I mean, you started this, and tell me more about that. How did you come to learn about making planes? Did you just start making your first plane and see if it flies, and then say, well, okay, it doesn't fly, what did I do wrong? Or
oh man, that is the history right there. Yeah, so I had my Easy Star, and I actually still have it. It flies, it's still out there somewhere. But I wanted to build my own because, especially when I started getting ready for the USA trip, I mean, conceptually, I didn't really see a platform out there that would meet the demands of what that could do. Because most people don't want to fly an RC airplane, you know, 125 kph for an hour and a half, right? That's pretty unique demands. And so I really, from the beginning, wanted to design my own. And so I started with a system called the MTP, the Modular Testing Platform. And it was just out of foam sheets, and it was pretty much a huge failure. It was bad, man. I started with a glider, and I had no idea about CG. Actually, I started figuring CG out, but the wings were way too flexible, and so I'd throw it, and the glider wings would just bow like crazy because there wasn't enough support. Anyway, long story short, the glider just was really having a hard time. And again, I got to reemphasize, the viewers of My Geek Show came on and said, no, you got to add a wing spar, you don't add weight, add more lightness, you know, take weight away, get your CG correct, your tail section's too small. You know, I just got all this feedback, and so I put it all into the glider until I got to get that working. And then I put a motor on it, and then I had the controls backwards because I was so new, man. I didn't know what I was doing. So I'd launch it, I'd pull back to pull up, and it just nosed into the ground and destroyed it. And anyway, I was getting really frustrated, and so basically I sat down and I totally copied the Easy Star. I literally traced it on a piece of paper, measured all the measurements, built what I called the Geek Star, which is literally like a copy of the Easy Star. And I was like, can I just even build an airplane at all? Like, is this even possible? And it flew really, really well. It flew just as good as the Easy Star, in fact, maybe a little better, in my opinion at least. But I'm biased. And after that, I was like, you know, can we scale this up? And so I built a Nova, and then just as kind of like built the Flying Wing, the Raptor, and then tried the Shrike, and it kind of went from there. So really, it took kind of the building design concepts, and the whole idea was that, can you take a design objective, and can you put it, you know, in my example, two-dimensional drawings, and then, of course, build it, crash it, learn from it, right, and then build on that. And that's why I've been able to build a lot of airplanes, especially the Raptor 140B. You know, maiden flight was perfect. Threw it, flew perfectly the first time, and that's not that I'm awesome, but it was because so many people had contributed to it, had built so many, and designed so many, that it was able to fly really well at first try. So anyway, it's been a long journey, and of course the 140C was just announced a few days ago, and I actually have a new airplane I'm announcing on Saturday. So, but I'll let that happen. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's a new airplane as well. So it's not another 140; it's a different airplane. But anyway, and I actually made and flew that yesterday, and it flew just awesome. So I'm excited to share that as well. So anyway, so yeah, designing and building airplanes, yeah, is definitely key to the whole My Geek Show environment.
No, it was, and you explained it so well. Every step by step that you did, and everybody could just say, okay, let's pause this here, and then let's do it. Let's just, I dig that so much. Now, now you were saying previously for your USA trip, the characteristics of the plane was very, very demanding. What characteristics are we looking at that you had that was so demanding?
Yeah, so there is a whole ecosystem. If you will, there are. So actually, to start it off really quick, I would say safety is number one, right? From the very beginning, it's always been, can we do it safely and ethically and legally? Because obviously, illegal would be illegal, and there's no reason to, oh, I'm going to share it with the whole world. I don't want to, do something illegal and show everyone. That would be bad. Anyway, so there's that safety thing. But so safety has its own kind of components, and so is it reliable? Is it does it have a lot of fail safes? I've got a whole list here. Is it, if it does crash, does it have an ability to kind of reduce its crash? Do we have a checklist to kind of prevent everything? Because really, think about it, like full-scale aircraft, like 747s, they basically never crash. I mean, statistically speaking. So how do they do that, right? So we're kind of stealing that same concepts from everything. Obviously, it has a flight path, because that's 4,600 kilometers, 2,500 miles. I mean, or 4,200 kilometers. It's a long ways. Yeah, very long ways. And of course, a team as well that to be able to execute that, we have to work really well together. So there's that whole kind of safety thing, right? So there's that kind of safety component. Then the airframe, that's the kind of the most exciting part. That's like, what you might think that would just be the normal kind of expectation. So the airplane has to cruise for about, we're looking at 100 kph, or about 62 miles an hour. It's kind of our target speed. And when I say cruise, that would mean kind of like the prop, the airplane, all the batteries and everything are optimized for that speed. Now, it can go faster, and it will need to because we'll have headwinds at times, obviously. So we need to be able to fly faster than that, but that's kind of optimized for that speed. That's our target right now. We may increase that as time goes, but that's the target. Max speed, we're looking for like 125, 130 kph to be able to pick it up and overcome like a good headwind to be able to continue flying. Has to have a really low stall speed. We're looking at 35 kph right now, or 30, 35 kph, and that's basically would allow for safe takeoffs and safe landings, obviously, so you don't have a tip stall and crash into something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be precipitation sealed because, of course, if it's raining outside, we got to keep flying, which has its own challenges, obviously. That's we're working through that right now. The 140B is about 80% sealed, and just a few more components need to be sealed. The 140C will be 100%. So literally, one day I'm going to go out there, it's going to be raining, and I'm going to fly that thing, and that's going to be scary. I've never done that before, especially hard rain. Right?
Yeah.
It has to be able to handle turbulence, so both takeoff, landing, and of course navigation, and be able to prove that. So 40 kph, which is about 25 mile-an-hour winds, which is a lot, but it needs to be able to do that so we don't just land and have to wait for the storm to pass. A few more. I know I'm cruising. Has to be able to continue a signal loss. So if we lose signal from the airplane, it has to keep flying. It has to adapt to elevation changes. Of course, we're covering such a large distance, flying into mountains, everything. It's got to be able to, go up and down in those elevation and be safe. And of course, control its AGL. It has to be able to recover from loss. So if we do lose it, like in a field somewhere, or if we lose connection with it, we have to be able to connect with it again and recover it. Dawn dusk capable. It has to be able to be seen in the darkness. It has to be able to take off and land in 100 meters, and a whole bunch of others. We got communication, and then of course the ecosystem, right? We got logistics. We got to have a mission planner with all the maps downloaded. We have to have a complete flight plan. So we're looking at a couple thousand waypoints, and thousands of waypoints. It's just me crazy. And I'm planning them right now. I've got, I'm in there in the mission planner, literally clicking 4,200 kilometers worth. It's nuts. And then, of course, we have to avoid airports and schools and populated areas and big telephone or big, radio masts. And then, of course, there's areas that aren't, the U.S. has blocked off. You can't fly over this. And there's just so much into the logistics of it. And then, there's funding of it because, I don't have enough money to pay for it all. So how are we going to fund this thing? How do we update weather information? How do we update the people during the journey? That's just starting it. So, yeah. So it's more than just the airplane. There's a whole bunch of ecosystem and planning that goes behind it as well. The airplane is important, but you can't just get an airplane and fly it. You've got to have all the chase vehicle and monitors and battery chargers and communication with the ground team. It's a lot. There's a lot to it.
Now, do you have a starting point defined already, or is that still hanging in the midst?
Yeah, so right now we're looking at kind of just north of LA, north of Los Angeles, and we're going to fly from LA, kind of cross into, basically make our beeline for Texas, cross through Texas and fly, into a little bit of Arkansas, a little bit into Louisiana, through Tennessee, Georgia, kind of thing. So basically, if you looked at the U.S., we're just California to Georgia, just straight across. And the reason why we're flying that path is it's avoiding, as much as possible, populated areas. Originally, we were going to fly from San Diego to Boston, but really that northeast area, there's so much population up there that when I got to kind of planning it out, it just didn't seem ideal. I mean, obviously the airplane's going to be safe. We're not going to make the trip, but if I want to choose lots of trees or lots of city, I'm going to choose trees. So that's why we're flying through that kind of lower populated area.
And what about this new thing going on in America where you can shoot a drone when you see it? Where is it, in Texas?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I think it's actually in Colorado, or it might be one in Texas too. Yeah, that's so funny. What's funny about that is, of course, we'll probably avoid that city. I would imagine if they caught wind of this happening, that would be like, prize.
Let's wait for this guy. Let's wait for this guy. Let's load the ammo. Get the AA guns ready.
Yeah, that'd be like a trophy, man. They'd be like, this is like the perfect thing. Yeah. What's funny is, like, we're going to be, so about a week and a half ago, we flew 32 miles or 52 kilometers, point A to point B, which was a nut. It was pretty intense. But one thing I learned really fast, I know this sounds really obvious, but you are in a place not for very long. I mean, obviously, you're driving 60, 70 miles an hour, 100 kph. I mean, again, I know that sounds obvious, but you cross a town just in seconds, right? I mean, you think how fast you drive through a town. I mean, in other words, even if we did fly over that town, I mean, we'd be in and out of there so fast before anyone would even see the airplane, we'd be gone. So unless they chase us down, and then that's intense. They deserve it if they want it that bad. So.
Yeah, no. No, that's brilliant. Now, from your very first episodes, I also enjoyed so much is your process of learning FPV. I mean, you started there and you started connecting the stuff and experimenting with the antennas, and you experimented with the telemetry. And tell me on your thoughts in the beginning. What was the what was your downfalls, if I might say that? What's your
I think really part of my geek show has also been that I would say, and this might kind of sound interesting or strange, but I don't pursue success. Really, I pursue failure, and I know that sounds a little strange, but for me, there's no such thing as success. There's really only failure avoidance. And so, for me, when I'm out there flying, and I mean, we're crashing, we're learning, and in other words, all these failures kind of brought together allow you to know what to avoid, what you need to do to control the environment, so you can have success. And so, my geek show has always been about very methodical, very just, step by step process, testing everything, ad nauseum, right? Just learning each step. And so for FPV, for example, and telemetry, we're testing it for range, we're testing it for connectivity, what happens when you lose signal, etc. And so that's been very, very helpful to know, when we do a trip like this cross-country flight we did last week, we have a lot of confidence in the system. And why do we have confidence in it? Well, that's because we have a lot of experience with it, and we know, and we've made a lot of mistakes. We've had a lot of bad settings, and don't put the antennas this way, and all these bad, we've gone through all these errors. So now we know our limitations. Now we know what we can and can't do. We know what we need to do to control the environment. So that's kind of, that testing is really about that. It's about learning. And kind of to speak on FPV, unfortunately, I haven't done as much FPV as I'd like to have. Just primarily because of expense and because DIY drones and 3DR has been so supportive. To be honest, in a lot of ways, we didn't really need FPV until kind of recently. Now we're kind of getting into the more cross-country stuff. It's going to be really, really required to have FPV. So the Raptor 140C is going to have it, and so we're going to get back to the FPV testing here in the next kind of couple weeks. We're going to get more into it, but yeah. So that's kind of the history. Is just getting in there and being patient and learning, obviously, because you got to be patient, and failure is a part of the process. You just got to learn to accept failure and move on and recognize its role in success, because it really is important to it.
Oh no, man, that's awesome. That's really, really awesome. Now, And there's another thing. In the beginning of the of a couple of episodes, it's, some of the members sponsored you a laptop, and then
Yeah.
did you ever get more sponsorships like that? Yeah, there it is.
It's sitting right here. I'm doing it I've got some notes I'm cheating from. Yeah, it's right here. Yeah, that was so awesome. It's kind of funny. Like, I hate asking for money. You know, that's because obviously people support me. Yeah, people support me through comments and everything, and support the show through other means as well. But at that time, it was like we had been borrowing a laptop from someone, and they needed it back, and we were like, well, you know, we have a certain budget, right? Basically, as much as our wives let us borrow, and it was going to be like a couple of months before we had enough to save up for the laptop, and that would have been fine. We totally could have done it, but we thought, hey, we'll just ask, see what the people think. If the people want to contribute, they can. It's not a big deal. They want to contribute, go for it, right? So posted the video, set up the donation widget through PayPal, and then I got an email from PayPal just a few minutes later that the widget was down. You know, it wasn't working anymore, and I'm like, oh, crap. So I went out there trying to fix it, and it was down because it had reached its donation goal, like, in 10 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Blew me away. I was, first of all, so grateful. I mean, when people put money into something, that means a lot. It's one thing to make comments, right? But it's entirely another to contribute funding to it. So that was a big deal. And obviously, you know, we followed through with our promise and wrote the names on, and to this day have been still using. I mean, obviously, you can see it's right here in front of me. I mean, we use this. I use this every single day, and I memorize all those names on there because I've seen it, you know, 5,000 times. So it's been awesome. Yeah, so I really like that, and going to be probably visiting something like this again here shortly with assisting paying for the 140C. That's to come here shortly as well, and obviously with the USA trip as well. Part of it is going to be funded through myself, obviously. I mean, I'm not rich, but it's going to have to pay. I'm going to pay for it too. But also the store, My Geek Show store, hopefully will pay for it a little bit, and then eventually going to look for some support from the viewers. But it's not just looking for cash, right? There's going to be some very specific rewards that people will have, and I've got some interesting ideas on how to fund it as well. So anyway, but yeah, that's kind of the story behind that. It was pretty awesome. And everyone, all these supporters are amazing, and everyone who, and I should say, those who couldn't contribute to, you know, are no less of a supporter, right? Obviously, everyone is their own financial situation, or just they don't want to support it. That's totally fine. So it wasn't like, you know, if you didn't, I hate you or something. But anyway, it's cool. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, through all your failures you have searched for, how many planes have you lost? Let's ask that question. How many planes has seen the graveyard, or not seen at all?
I am. Let me think for just a second. I want to say, yeah, I don't think we've ever lost one. I have all of them. They're all sitting. In fact, every single airplane is sitting up in my attic. Like, I could go grab the original glider. Is up there still. Every single one is up there still. I haven't thrown any of them away, which is bad because someday I'm gonna have to, you know, I can't keep them all forever. But but I'm thinking crashed, man. See, there's the MTP 123. There's the original glider. That thing's dead. The Nova is still alive. It still fly. I mean, you can fly it. The electronics are off of it. The Strike is still there. The Geek Star is still there. The Raptor 120, kind of the original Raptor, is still alive. I actually crashed that into a lake. That was never in an episode, but I was at a friend's house and I crashed into a lake at like full throttle. It was bad, and but it's still alive.
Did it look cool though?
It was intense. Let me tell you that. I was showing off. I know you always crash when you show off, but I was showing off, and yeah, that's right. And actually creamed into a lake. This is crazy. The original Raptor, what I call the Raptor 120, is about 120 centimeter wingspan. I crashed that into a lake. The battery was ejected, and so that's in the bottom of the lake somewhere. We couldn't get that back, unfortunately. But the receiver, the servos, which I guess that's the speed controller, were all the same as the original Raptor, and then I added the APM, and I added the battery, and then I flew that same airplane that whole last year. The same receiver and servos were sitting in the lake at some point. I mean, and the whole front end. I mean, so I got to tell you the story. So it crashed, and the whole front end was totally collapsed. I mean, it was all bent and damaged and everything. Yeah. And then we like tossed in the back of the car. We weren't even careful with it. And then at the time, Nick and I were just looking at it, and we just like literally got like a sheet of packing tape, put it on the bottom, and kind of like flexed it back. And we're like, there it goes, like just kind of sarcastically. And then we're like, huh, I wonder if it flies. And it totally did. And so we made like 20 episodes with it, and it covered, who knows what, I want to say about 300 kilometers like that. I mean, it's so funny. So it was tough machine, man. So I want to say crashed. We probably crashed 5 or 6 pretty bad. But what was amazing is like I don't know if you remember, but that Shrike video, I mean, that Shrike was like, had the worst of luck. I mean, it had a really rough maiden flight. That's my bad. But its controls were just so sensitive that it was just impossible to land. I basically just crashed it right away. And then it lost connection. And that was another, I mean, so many learnings here, right? But it flew like way the heck away. We were, 2 miles, 4 or 5K away. Found it in the middle of a field. I mean, it was just nuts.
You had to look for it, and it was a big
Yeah,
thing.
there was like a stinking miracle, man. I don't know if you are a man of faith, but that was a miracle. I'm telling you that we found that thing. And then like the next episode, we lost it again for another reason. And then we found that airplane like 12 hours later because we went looking for it, and then we had to go to work, so we left the airplane because we couldn't find it. Came back that day, same day after work, and found it. I mean, it was just nuts. So yeah, we found all of our aircraft. So pretty crazy.
Oh, no, that's flipping awesome. No, I remember that. And it was also a back-to-back episode because you lost the one plane, and then the next episode you lost it again and had to find it again.
It was embarrassing. Yeah, we got a little. We definitely got some comments of people losing faith a little bit in the show, but we got through it. So.
Yeah. Now, at one point, you did a show where you connected the joysticks and everything, and you got it up and running. And are you still looking into doing the joystick thing, or are you just 100% on the remote control? Because as I remember, you said on that the joysticks were a bit sluggish.
Yeah, there was. So yeah, to answer your question specifically, I think I want to try it again. There was a delay. You might have seen, I want to say it was maybe just half a second, and you're talking like move. I mean, it was pretty quick. So I don't think you would, I mean, it's hard to say exactly because I'm sure it's improved since then, because that was like a year and a half ago. And to be honest, I didn't even mess with the settings. I just like plugged it in and went for it. So, I mean, I'm sure there are better settings for it. And also I was using the default baud rate, not baud rate. I can't remember the term exactly, but there's a communication speed between the two telemetry units. And so I'm sure I didn't have the settings ideal and everything, but I definitely want to revisit that because that would be, I mean, even more awesome to sit there and control it that way, right? And also be able to control it via telemetry would be a really good backup plan. So if your controller failed, we could do that. One of the reasons I wanted to do control through that method is it would be easy to kind of simplify the ground station, right? You wouldn't have the controller and the telemetry and all these other processes. But as I've kind of gone through time, I've really liked having that redundancy and being able to have kind of the traditional transmitter receiver setup and the transceiver and FPV. I mean, all these things, and then of course, and the flight controller being able to fly by itself. All these things together make for really, really good redundancy. So I think I'm going to keep it. But I think I'd like to get back to having a joystick. That would be awesome because, I mean, it's so like,
All this up cockpit at the back there. And
yeah, that's right. It kind of completes that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Block off all of the
experience.
windows of the car, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I want to visit it again. And as you may know, you can actually take that joystick and plug it into like your Turnigy 9X transmitter. Like there's a process to do that. And so you can actually have that same equipment control your transmitter. So you could actually have that same interface basically. So anyway, that would be interesting to do as well someday.
Okay, no, that's awesome. Now you set up your car, and I've seen your car, and it almost looks like Back to the Future's car with all the antennas sticking out and the windows blocked off and the wiring go through the window and.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
All
go ahead.
All it needs to do is pick up and fly.
Yep.
Now, yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll tell you a quick story. I don't know if I really told the story on the show, but to tell you, I was at work one day, and one of my buddies, who sits near the window, he called me. He's like, "Hey Trent, I think security's looking at your car." And I was like, "What?" So I looked out the window, and sure enough, there was like a couple security guys standing near my car, like kind of scoping it out. And I'm like, "Oh no!" So I'm on the 3rd floor, right? So I ran down the stairs as fast as I could. Kind of ran out there, and I actually know the security guys pretty well. Just walking in the office every day and talking, saying hi to him and everything. And I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they were like really serious and didn't want to talk to me. And I'm like, "Is everything okay?" And they're like, "Is this your car?" It's like, "Yeah, it is." They're like, "Oh man, what are you doing?" They're all like, I mean, they weren't mad about it, but they were pretty kind of freaked out. And they had called the bomb squad. Literally. Serious? They had called the police, and the bomb squad and the police were on their way. It was like crazy. So I was like, "No, it's not anything crazy." So I opened the trunk and showed them all the electronics and showed them the equipment and showed them all the switches and showed them what everything that had done. So they called security right away and say no, or called the police and said, "No, it's okay, don't worry about it." So they, I actually never got to see the bomb squad. That would have been kind of cool. But so that was avoided. And then one time I was at a local store, and they called the police on it. So there's a sheriff sitting by my car, kind of checking it out, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he's like, "Is this your vehicle?" And I need to look at it, and it was so funny. So I kind of, "It's all right. It's don't be freaked out." So anyway, it's been interesting. So that's been kind of the also secret reasoning behind blocking those windows out, just to kind of keep people calm. And so it's been interesting. Had a few run-ins, innocently, of course, and luckily it all turned out good, and everyone was fun and fine about it. But yeah, so that car has attracted more attention than I think I'd like, and I get some weird looks when I'm driving down the street, and that big antenna sitting at the top. And anyway, but hey, it's my geek show, man. That's what it is.
One thing I was very impressed with, and I actually tried building my own, and I failed a bit, and never really went for this. Your whole power management system for your car, and all the equipment. Oh my word, that was so nice to design. Who was the original designer behind it? Was it you? Was it one of your crew members? That was really done well. I must compliment on you there.
Thank you. Yeah, that was. We sat down. So at the time, we had this like a battery. It's actually for boats. It's a marine battery in the back, and we had like, oh man, it was so bad. We had stripped the wires for for the power supply for our monitor, our transmitter, and a bunch of other things. And we were wrapping them around the battery terminals every time. And then we had like a nut, right? And we'd like cinch it down tight. I mean, it was bad. And we'd be like driving down the road, and like sparks would shoot off of it. I mean, bad, right? And, so Nick and I were like, okay, before we blow ourselves up or kill ourselves with something or short our stuff out and fry everything, we had to think of a better system. So Nick and I sat down and just really kind of a classic My Geek Show, right? We sat down and think, okay, what's our requirements? We needed each one to be switched so you could turn them on and off independently. We needed each one to be fused so that way in case one blew, the other system wouldn't be brought down. So if like, I don't know, the monitor shorted and it fried itself, then the other monitors and the other transmitters would be online. It needed to have accessibility. It needed a bunch of other requirements, right? So we sat down and just literally pen and paper drew it out. And that thing, man, it took so much time. It probably took, I'd probably say 20 hours. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I mean, we had, I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say we had like 150, 200 solder connections. It was a lot. I mean, and there's a whole bunch of other things. Like we had this little 15-watt soldering iron. We had this big copper rod, right? The ground rods to wrap the wires around, and our soldering iron wouldn't get hot enough to solder it. Like, because the copper would just absorb all the heat. So we had to buy so we had to buy this soldering iron that was used for what's it called? A stained glass windows, So this huge, like, I can't remember, it was like 100 watt or something, just huge soldering iron. It would like glow red, and like oxidized steel will fall off of it and everything. Anyway, so we'd use that to solder with. And anyway, one of the other quick funny story on that is we built that whole system, and I will admit I'm like OCD. Like I have like mental issues sometimes. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, right? So everything has to be perfect. And so I'd finished this whole thing, bolted it on, and then I looked, and just one of the wires wasn't heat shrinked. Just one of them.
Up to standard, I understand.
It's right, and I was just. What was funny is it wasn't heat shrinked to this huge bare copper wire, so it wasn't like it really mattered. But like, I got it out and I started taking it apart, and Nick was like, "What are you doing?" And I started soldering stuff off, and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm like, I gotta put this heat shrink on." And he like physically restrained me and put it back together. Anyway, so there is one wire that's not heat shrinked on there, and it just bothers the heck out of me.
And it's still bothering you.
To this day, what's so funny? Yeah, to this day, I sit down, I look at that thing, and I'm like, it just drives me nuts. So one day, when no one's looking, I'm gonna take it apart and put that one wire back on. And anyway, so yeah. So it's a very cool tool. It's going to be increasingly used as we get closer to the USA trip and have all the transmitters and everything in the monitors, and also with the battery packs. So it's going to be powering the different kind of banks of battery chargers. And so if one fries itself, then we can keep charging the other components. And because it has a watt meter on there, we can kind of keep track of the battery source voltage and kind of keep an idea of how everything's flowing. So yeah, it's a pretty cool system. It was pretty expensive. I want to say it was like $150, which is actually not that much, but it was labor intensive. And anyway, it was fun.
No. Another thing is also another episode. We talk about this. The testing you did on GPS interference. Please tell me the findings you did on there. That was actually very, very interesting there.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit that because the results were really surprising, and at the time I didn't understand what HSTOP was, and I don't know what HSTOP stands for. I can't remember. Horizontally, anyway, something. But basically, the smaller the better, right? At any rate, yeah, what we did is we were concerned. So at the time, we were having issues with the APM, and it wasn't the APM's fault. What was actually happening is our prop was so unbalanced. I mean, again, I learn as I go, right? This was so dumb. I mean, the prop was so balanced that you crank it up, and the thing would like vibrate in your hands, and like stuff would fall off. I mean, it was bad. But at the time, I was like, yeah, just go for it. I mean, what does it really matter, right? Obviously, I know now better. So obviously, the prop was oscillating a lot, and obviously it was throwing everything off in air, and the APM just had no, the accelerometers were all freaked out, and so it wasn't flying very well. But that's because I'm stupid. But anyway, I was stupid, not as stupid as I was then. Anyway, so we were testing the GPS to try to figure out what was causing this issue. We thought it might be the GPS. So yeah, so we put different materials over it. We put like powered up speed controllers and motors and everything, and we're actually really surprised with how well it performed. So the satellites didn't go down. With that said, though, since that time, I've learned a lot more about GPS and how it functions, and obviously the frequencies it operates on. And so we really should revisit it. Because I've also noticed that the compass as well, that is actually, I mean, the GPS is one thing, but the compass is really influenced by electromagnetic fields, obviously, a lot, because it's a compass, right? It's a magnet, it's sensitive to magnetism. And so that was probably the bigger concern. I mean, the GPS is usually pretty good, but the compass, that's the one you got to be really sensitive about. Speed controllers, DC currents, obviously, so, main lines coming from your batteries or other transmitters and everything. Anyway, so that's so the 140 has been really successful because we have that external U-blocks with compass, and that thing is just, I mean, the H-stop is like 1 or less than 1. I don't know, it can get less than 1, but it's very, very, very accurate, and the compass is perfect because it's nice and distant from the other components. So really should revisit that. That really needs to be revisited because I know a lot more about it now, and it'd be really good to test it. But yeah, so that's kind of the testing to kind of learn from that process.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now you did your first 10K flight just the other day. A couple of episodes back. I mean, when did you just decide, say, let's do a 10K waypoint flight? Did you plan for it weeks ahead, or you just say, oh, it's a beautiful day, let's go do a 10K waypoint flight? Right.
Yeah. So it kind of started with. So when the original Raptor could have a range of about 10 kilometers, but the batteries would be pretty low, and I was never really comfortable with doing that because I didn't want it to have a headwind or something. And so being able to test and know the capability of the 140, okay, now we know that it has the ability to do 10 kilometers, or in that example, 52 kilometers, a huge distance, or at least for me it's a big distance. Because I know people out there, of course, I mean, 50K is a lot, but people have totally blown that out of the water. I mean, people do 100K all the time, so it's not like 50K is super special. But I think for that trip specifically, I was looking for, less than 10-mile-an-hour winds, just to kind of keep it safe. Not that it's unsafe to fly more than that, but just to kind of keep it controlled, I should say. And really, we sat down and just looked at the first available time, and I needed someone to drive the car, and Nick in that example. I don't think I'll ever drive and fly at the same time. I think that might be a bad idea. I don't know. Maybe I could work it out, but I don't know if I like the idea because I wouldn't. Well, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to focus on driving. Flying, okay, no, that is important, but driving, I don't want to die or hurt someone or do anything else. So anyway, that would definitely. You think driving while texting is bad? Wait till you drive while flying. That's bad. Anyway, so yeah, we just picked a date on the calendar, went for it, and as far as preparation. That, to be honest, that's kind of one thing. I don't know if it sounds like you've watched the show for a while. The show has changed a little bit, probably starting, I want to say like kind of late last year. I want to say like October and stuff. And it was a tough call to make. At the time, I used to show everything. I mean, we'd show every preparation, every step. We'd show every single flight. Like literally, every time I flew, it went on YouTube. But now I probably don't show a tenth of the flights. I fly a lot more. I don't really show everything as much anymore. There's some things that I learned that I don't show on the show, and I know it's kind of controversial because I used to do that a lot. But to get ready for the USA trip, I just got to do a lot of flying, and I don't have time to edit every single video and publish every single one. And so one of the things that I learned recently on that was, and one of the preparations I had to do for the flight was just to plan the flight plan. I mean. That took by itself, I want to say, probably 2 or 3 hours of planning out that 52 kilometers of waypoints, because of course, as you know, I had to plan it. I had to find a location, right? So I had to find a place that had nice open fields and low population, fly away from airports and all that other stuff, and then I had to put all those waypoints. But then I had to look at the altitude or the elevation, right? Because the elevation increased as we went along the journey. And there's a lot of hills in that area, and there's a lot of radio antennas or big radio masts and everything. And the 2 original locations I chose previously. One had a NOTAM or a notice to airmen, so the area was blocked off, wasn't allowed to be flown in. So I had to deviate from that. And the second place I chose was close to an airport, and so I had to deviate from that. And so we had to anyway. So it took a lot of planning just to get a right flight location. And then to choose a landing location. I mean, anyway, there's a lot of preparation that goes into putting that. And of course, really, the preparation has been for the last 3 years. I mean, it's all that experience. And that quick, I don't know if you watched it, but I had a bit of a botched takeoff. I'm not perfect, and I didn't pull it back far enough, and so I skidded on the ground. And that was another example of being prepared, because I looked, what do you do when you recover from that kind of failure, right? Yeah. So I know I've done that before. I mean, obviously, we've all had bad takeoffs. And so I had to make a judgment call and say, is this prop strong enough? Is it still stable enough? We bolted it back on, propped it up, it had no vibrations. We inspected it. The prop looked good. Launched it, did some really hard dives and barrel rolls and everything, and the plane performed well, so let's go for it. And I know from past experience that if it kind of passes that criteria, then it's probably going to fly just fine. Anyway, so that was a good example of just preparation is really the last few years of experience. And that's, when you announced the USA trip, a lot of people were like, I could do that right now. I mean, my airplane can do it, and I'm just going to go do it. And yeah, you probably could. I mean, it's really simple, right? You take off, you fly, you land, and you do that a whole bunch of times, and you cross the country. But I think the difference is to execute it safely and to do it right, is you have to have a lot of experiences like the one I just had to know what, again, like I said, success is failure avoidance, and you have to fail a lot to have the right success. Anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
So true.
That's basically
so true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I like about you guys is that the community has helped you so much, and you're just giving back by beginner to expert series. That you went and you say, for those guys who doesn't know anything, let's learn them something. I mean, you've got a whole series of common beginner questions, introduction to airship plays, and you get intermediate, common upgrade and batteries and props, and you address all of that. I mean, where did you start with this? What was the whole thought behind this beginner to expert section of your MyGeekShow?
Yeah, That's exactly right. I mean, I don't know. I know this sounds cheesy or sounds maybe not like normal, maybe, but I really feel like I have a responsibility. And again, covered a lot of cheesy subjects today, but it's really true. I mean, so many people have helped me, especially on YouTube, obviously, on DIY drones, particularly. Again, shout out to DIY drones because that. Here's the deal with them. You've got people who are really, really experienced. I would say that most people at DIY drones are more advanced with their RC experiences because usually you have to be to fly a drone, obviously. But the difference is so there are a lot of people who are experienced, but not very many people who are willing and patient to help people who are new, and so that is huge. So yeah, because some people who know a lot can be jerks about it, or like, you know, because like when I first started, in fact, you can go on DIY drones and search my original posts. Like I asked some really stupid questions. Like I mean, they were really dumb because I had no idea what I was talking about. I just didn't even know where to start, and so they were really patient and explained, you know, flight controllers and telemetry and all that stuff. They explained it all to me. So I really feel like because other people have been helpful to me, I need to pass it on to others because I feel like that's part of my role in this kind of ecosystem is to kind of share that knowledge. And also, when I started, there were just a lot of simple questions like, how much do RC airplanes cost? Like, I don't even know like what to expect, or what happens if you crash? That's one of the videos. Like, I mean, that's what I think a lot of barriers to RC airplanes is people think that they're really, really expensive, and that they're really, really like when they crash they're just done. Well, that was probably true, you know, 20 years ago, where people had to hand build them through, you know, balsa wood and everything. And I mean, that's an awesome hobby. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing on it, but it was expensive and it might have been sensitive. Well, today, obviously, you can buy a kit airplane for less than $100, and it's foam and it's like invincible. And you can, you know, learn on that. And so anyway, little simple questions like that might sound really obvious to people who've been here for a while, who have some experiences and have forgotten what it was like to be new. I mean, those are the kind of questions that stop people from getting into it. So that was really the idea behind beginner to expert. And to be honest, beginner to expert needs way more. It needs more videos. I used to make them a lot more. I haven't done as many in the last few months just because of how demanding the USA trip has been. And other things, you know, it's not my full-time job. I would love it to be my full-time job, but My Geek Show isn't. And so it really needs more content, especially in the intermediate area, because I think a lot of people are kind of, you know, looking for stuff like common upgrades and things like that. So anyway, beginner to expert's fun, but I got to get into it, and someday we'll spend more time on it.
Now, one of those shows I would love you to see make is auto takeoff and auto land, and just do it and go through the steps. I mean, your video is flipping awesome, and that.
Yeah, right now the 140, and this is kind of scary. It's not, you know, safety is huge. Obviously, you always want to be safe, and the 140 launching process is getting better. But right now, and I would not recommend this to anyone. So don't do what I do. Like, do as I say, not as I do. But right now, I have to hold the motor. Basically, I have to hold the motor mount, pull it back, turn the safety off, and then let go with that slingshot, and then turn the motor on. And that's just like, you never want your hand ever near a powered machine, especially one that can put out 850 watts. I mean, that'll cut your fingers off, right? So, yeah, that's not good. And auto takeoff is very predictable. It's very reliable. I've used it a lot for the Nova, but it's not perfect. And at times, it could possibly recognize a takeoff, and if my hand's on that thing, that would be bad. And so right now, that's why, so I don't use auto takeoff yet for the Raptor, because currently I don't have a good way of keeping myself separate from the airplane. But the Nova did, and maybe I will come up with a better way to not hold the motor. Trent, come on, that's like not a good practice, and I'm thinking of ideas to get away from it. And I've got stitches. I've got 8 stitches here and 6 here because of that because I'm stupid sometimes. Anyway, so auto takeoff totally should be done eventually. The other thing is, you know, takeoff's actually not too hard, but auto landing totally could do that. I'm a little scared still. Like, I trust the APM, but man, turning that auto land on and just like taking your hands off the transmitter and watch it fly close to the ground would just be like shoot my blood pressure up. But I gotta do that eventually. And there was someone, and I'm sorry if you're watching or if you ever see this, I should know your name. I'm sorry, but someone made some really good comments I think on DIY drones, and emailed me as well about a series of videos that we could do to test kind of emergency procedures and what would happen if you lost them. And I'm gonna pull this up while I talk, because that person really does need to shout out, because it was a really good comment. But one of them is auto landing, right? Because then you could come in for a landing, in the event of radial loss or whatever, and it would be much safer to do that process. So auto landing totally needs to happen someday.
No, that's brilliant. Now, are you going to start a Kickstarter or something for donations for your USA trip, or is there already a donation thing on your website?
Yeah,
or,
yeah, that's good. That's good. Great question. So Kickstarter is a really good marketing tool, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that can go on there, and it's a really good concept, right? That you donate and you get rewards or some sort of benefit from donating. The downside of Kickstarter is that, of course, they take a piece of it. I mean, they're a business. They need to support their ecosystem. The other problem is they work with the process called Amazon Payments. And what Amazon Payments, of course, Amazon will take their cut as well. So you have two cuts out of the donation. And Amazon, there's a delay. It can be 30 days or more sometimes to get your funding. And again, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's hard to complain, with donations, right? It's like free money, how can you complain? But really, that's something to consider. That's something to remind yourself. There are some benefits, obviously. I mean, they do really good tracking. You know who donates and what reward they deserve, and so there's that kind of process. I have considered using Kickstarter, but those downsides kind of weigh on me a little bit. But now that I have a store, what I'm thinking about doing is something kind of similar. Is basically I just have a tab on my store and say, you buy this X, whatever it would be. And to give you a quick example, one of the things I'm considering doing is like selling like a patch where you'd have a patch where if you donated, I'm just making numbers up, you donated X dollars and that pays for X kilometers or X miles, right?
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you'd buy this patch basically, and of course you'd pay more than the patch is worth, but that's because you're donating to the show, right? And you donate that, and then I would, of course, ship you the patch. I'd get the money to be able to support the show or support the USA trip. So that's the idea. So basically, it's a Kickstarter, except I don't have any fees. Well, you have some fees. It's not perfectly free, but you skip on those 2 fees, and you get it a lot faster. I can basically get it instantly. So that's the kind of idea behind that.
That's a great idea, if I must say so myself. That's very, very good. Now, Now, Trent, I wish you all the well on your USA trip. I'm not sure if you have got a date yet.
Yeah, June 16th.
June 16th. It's around the corner.
It's come up fast. It's like 100 and I can't remember, 150 days or something like that. It's pretty close.
Sure. Now, I must thank you for this show. It's been really, really fun, much knowledgeable, and just talking to you has made me smarter. Getting smarter with my geek show, huh? Man, it's really.
Thank you. It's so much fun to make, man. I love every step of it. I mean, obviously you can imagine it takes a lot of planning, filming it. Obviously, as a pilot, I mean, there's 20 minutes of preparation, just charging batteries and setting it up, and getting clearance to fly in that area. Obviously, I have to talk to people to get safe, clearance to do that. Flying it and then editing the video, then exporting it, then uploading it, then distributing it, and commenting, responding to comments. This last about dozen episodes, I've tried to respond to every comment I get, which is, hundreds. It's a lot, which is awesome. I love doing it. So every step, I love doing it. I geek out on it every time, and it's awesome. I mean, the viewers are amazing, really, really patient, really smart, really good people. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll definitely talk to you again after your USA trip.
Sounds good.
We'll listen to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.